name is Sister Kathleen Wood, and I taught at the university for about 30 years in the theology department. I retired, about 6 or 7 years ago, and I work now in the mother house is adjacent to the college, and we have a Marillac retreat center there, and so I do spiritual direction and retreats and give talks and work on resources and things like that are fun and nice to keep up.
The kitchen supervisor with the kitchen. My name's Chris, and
at the university.
My name is Amanda, and I'm a student.
My name is Justin Seaver. I'm the head women's soccer coach here at the University of St. Mary.
Well, most everybody knows me as Mama, but I'm Amy and work in the CAF.
That's a tough one. Ghosts.
I believe very much in a spirit world in some way. I think in America we have a connotation with ghosts as kind of spooky, floaty types of things or something. That is not anything in my experience, but I do believe that people who have died live on, and that very often their spirit can communicate with people in this world.
What we have now are more ready to go. They're ready to go home because they'll tell you that they feel that they're being called home. But I'm sure that some of the original sisters might still be around here, and they're making us know that they're here.
Yeah, so my first 2 years I lived in the dorms, and the first year they always tell you about Jack Jack. Jack Jack was a little boy who was an orphan here, and the tornado wiped out the building and took his life. And so they always say he likes to play with the elevator buttons, so those will light up, and then like randomly the elevator will open or close, but he likes to take your things. And so one day my ID was missing till dinner, and I got so frustrated that I was like, Jack Jack, I need this. And then after dinner, it was just laying on my desk.
I had a couple of my own experiences, so I believe that if someone says that they saw something, it's pretty legit. Okay.
Do you? I think I believe in the idea of ghost more than I actually would believe in ghost.
I have had some experiences with the idea of ghosts, or what could have been interpreted as that.
So you have a couple stories to tell me?
So, yeah, there was one about a month ago. I was in the kitchen cleaning up over by the fryer with the other supervisor, and we heard all the buckets just start crashing off of the chemical room. There's about 30 buckets in there. And so I went to run in there to see what was going on, and none of the buckets had moved.
Yeah.
So it's like they all fell and just magically went back up. And there's another time where I was in the kitchen, and the only thing on the table was one of my chef knife, and I was at the table across from it, and I happened to look over, and the knife jumped in the air and landed back down on the table. I took that as a sign to put the knife up.
Yeah.
I really didn't want anything bad to happen afterward.
Something that some people really do have, where they almost feel they saw someone, or that they felt their presence in the room with them, or something at maybe a crisis time in their lives, or something. I often turn to my parents or some of the sisters that I knew and say, what would you do in this situation, or how can we help this person, and feel that they are truly listening, that they care, that they are as real and as whatever kinds of love and concern they had in their time, that it's still present. But I don't have any, what I guess you'd call sensory experience, or something that I can kind of feel like.
Okay.
I could say, yes, this particular time I had this, I pray every day, and so I do have times when I feel that God is maybe more near than other times.
My personal experience, though, was being in Mother House dining room, wiping tables after dinner. Heard somebody yell my name. It was in the room. I was the only person in the room. And it wasn't my coworker because she was washing the dishes. I could hear her back in the other area. I could hear her singing, talking to herself or whatever. There was nobody in the hall because that was the first thing I did, was looked in the hall.
Yeah.
Then I walked back into the room and I kind of squatted down so I could look down underneath of the tables, make sure nobody was in there being silly. I was all alone in that room. So yeah, that and the unease that you feel, like walking from here in the calf to the ladies' restroom, you have to walk through where the stairwell is. And you can feel, sometimes it feels like somebody's looking over watching. So if you're brave, you stop and you look up. If you're not brave, you walk faster.
On Fort Leavenworth, there's a lot of horror stories on Fort Leavenworth, but when I was a kid, there's a place called the Rookery. It's now housing for the officers, but apparently what it used to be was a stable where the soldiers would play cards, and the horses obviously would be in the stable, and I heard what I thought sounded like laughing, but it also could have been anything else.
Then hearing random sounds and assuming it could be a ghost, I would say no personally. I have friends that will claim they have seen ghosts. My hometown of Ashton, Kansas is actually rated one of the most haunted towns in America. So we went ghost hunting before as kids, but I never personally have stumbled across one.
Okay.
I think so, because they're so dedicated to this. So I feel like their spirit guide really wants to leave this place because it's something that even when our sister Mother Xavier, she started it. So all of these sisters came here because they believed what she believed. So I feel like they would never leave this place.
Their family or
When our sisters die, they're always buried with other sisters if that's possible. But like we have a sizable plot in one of the different cities in Montana where our sisters have lived over the years, that sisters are buried there. And occasionally, for some reason, if sisters might be buried, happen to die in a town where we haven't been, and so that we don't have a group of sisters, they usually take the body to one of those other cities close by. Occasionally a sister really does request that she be buried in the Mother House Cemetery, and so she might be have her body sent home. We have a custom to always save a place next to a sister who has a sibling in the community, and so those sisters are usually meant to be buried together, and we would have those bodies sent home in some way. And of course today a lot of sisters are cremated, and so their remains are easy to take back and forth. Those of us who die on this campus, if we happen to be here when we die, expect to be in this cemetery.
okay.
But we can choose ahead of time and write out for people if we would like to be cremated, or we have the option of a natural burial where you don't have an embalmed body, you just have one wrapped in some kind of materials that can be buried right in the ground.
I think it just kind of shows our history. Like, this is the sisters. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the sisters and the work they did. So it's kind of, I think it's nice to have them, like, their final resting place be here at their home where they found it. That way they can still be a part of the mission and what we do.
So the little bit of history that I know about the cemetery comes straight from a sister who had 2 other sisters, so there were 3 in total. When the first sister perished, of course, she was laid to rest. When the second sister passed, they had left a space for her to be buried there. And there's also a third plot where the remaining sister will be buried. There's headstones that relate the name of orphans that were in the orphanage that the sisters ran. I think it was on this property is what she told me. They are buried out here also. So it's not like they just dug a hole, threw these kids in because nobody loved them. They were properly buried,
Yeah.
you know, in the Christian way. Then you have fathers who overseen everything, who are also buried there. And then there's plaques that show the sisters that are sisters of charity, but aren't buried here. And it is interesting because it's like any cemetery that you go into that's older. Like, you can hear cars and trucks and traffic when you're walking anywhere on this campus, but once you set foot into the actual confines of the cemetery, it's very quiet. It's kind of strange how quiet it is, even with the traffic being that close.